Channell-Justice, who joins us from Massachusetts in the US. He's the director at the Harvard University Ukrainian Research Institute's Temerty Contemporary Ukraine Program. Emily, thank you so much for your time. What's exactly happened here? Donald Trump seems to be becoming so abusive to Volodymyr Zelensky. There may be many Ukrainians thinking maybe the war should not end with Donald Trump's intervention.
Well, thank you so much for having me, first of all. And I think for those of us who lived through a first Trump administration, I think it's not very surprising that there's a lot of new and very aggressive kind of comments. The Ukrainians were really open to a Trump presidency. Trump came into office promising a lot to Ukraine, and he really hadn't shown that much interest in catering to Putin's demands until now. And so I think a lot of people are really quite surprised to see this, what really looks like a kind of acceptance of Putin's demands. And I think it's quite alarming, not only for Ukrainians, but certainly for Ukraine's European allies, who have seen the US as a very strong partner in Ukraine. And the unpredictability is really something that I think has a lot of people worried on both sides of the aisle.
When Joe Biden came to the White House, he said that the world faced a decision. Would it support autocracy over democracy? And he was very clear on which side he stood. Has the calculation now changed? Are we looking at a different kind of geopolitical assessment that doesn't have the United States as almost the beacon of the free world?
I think we may be. I think Trump has often positioned himself as a kind of strong man in kind of a counterpart position to Vladimir Putin, whereas Zelensky has really shown that Ukraine is championing democracy. And where previously, as you said, the Biden administration showed itself to be a very strong ally to Ukrainian democracy, it's kind of unclear what direction U.S. governance is going in at this point. And I think this is something that should be really alarming to the whole free world. It's really the unity of the European, US, the North Atlantic position against Putin, supporting sanctions, supporting the kind of marginalization of Russian economic goals. That has been a very effective measure over the long term in stopping Russia from succeeding in taking over all of Ukraine. And Trump's willingness to listen to Putin's demand has the potential to change all of that, and also to make democracy less certain around the world, I think.
Do you see any way of this conflict ending without Ukraine ceding territory?
That's a hard choice. It's a hard position to take. I want to say, I support Ukrainians' position, who say that there's no possibility to cede territory, but at the same time, I think Zelensky's hand might be sort of forced in this case, depending on how much the European allies are able to step up. The Ukrainian position is not going to be sustainable if U.S. support is gone. European allies have shown themselves willing to make some contributions, but nothing definitive. Will they be able to step up and allow Ukraine to keep fighting, especially if the U.S. has changed its position? I think that's quite difficult. And I do think that a lot of Ukrainians are ready for some kind of end to the war. Although at the same time, I think it's really important to say that Ukrainians understand that any ceasefire, any promises from Vladimir Putin, that's just a temporary hold. He will certainly come back with force later, maybe 5 years, maybe fewer. So I think the main reason Ukrainians remain worried about ceding territory is because they understand that one step of ceding territory is just an invitation to potentially have Putin come back and take more. So I think it's important to be really delicate about the conversation about ceding territory. Giving Putin a teeny bit of territory is really inviting him to come back and take what he wants.
Emily, Channell-Justice, thank you for the analysis. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.